Hello, welcome to another episode of Ciego Supreme.
Ciego Supreme is dressed in a white
I
branded
have someone here
t-shirt
with
of a
me
blinded
on the
folded man
show,
stirring
but
a
our
pot
listeners
with an
introduce
inscription
themselves.
Ciego Supreme underneath
Yeah,
it.
hello. I'm really happy to be here. It's Dr Akeem-Sule, and I'm a consultant psychiatrist.
Okay, thanks for being on the show, Dr. Akeem.
Pleasure. Thanks
So,
for having me.
I know it's really a tough one living with visual impairment, but would you be able to let some insight in on the psychological impact of living with visual impairment?
Yeah, thanks for
camera
asking me that
shifts focus on
question.
the
Now, there are a
guest,
number of
Dr.
factors
Akeem-Sule.
that influence the psychological aspects of living with visual impairment. So sometimes
They are
that's to do
seated on a
with
Chesterfield sofa
whether it's a sudden
in front of a window with the curtains
visual
drawn
loss,
back.
whether the person was born with the condition, and also the support rallying around the person. But generally, the kind of impact
Dr.
you have
Akeem-Sule, a
psychologically,
dark-skinned
you know,
man with a
generally
neat
tends to
shaving
be
cut is
things like
dressed in a
grief,
black Puma
and that
hoodie
makes
with the
sense. There's a
inscription
loss
Naija
of
versus everybody on it.
something, so people grieve. So
That's
it's very
right.
similar to the process of grieving, mourning, a pining for sight and things like that. Also, there can be depression and anxiety.
Dr.
So
Sule
with
gestures
depressive
with his right
symptoms, there'll
hand
be
as he
things like
speaks.
not being able to enjoy things, low mood, and just feeling bad. Anxiety goes with that. What is
Ciego
also
visibly
very,
listens
very
attentively to
interesting
Dr.
about
Sule.
visual loss is sometimes people have low self-esteem and a loss of identity. Because if you think about it, identity can be generally tends to be around who we are. So sometimes people equate the visual loss to them as a person. Hence, sorry for using this word, but people say things like, "Oh, I'm just the blind man or the blind woman," and it can be part of their
not
identity,
politically correct.
which is not politically correct.
That's right.
So people generally would tend to use those terms rather than the more appropriate term of I have a visual impairment, and that's important because it separates the person from something that's happened. So language obviously is important. The other things that come along with that is social isolation. And social isolation is very, very important because social isolation also increases the risk of things like cognitive impairment. And it makes sense. People with visual impairment sometimes are afraid to go out. They lose their social contact and hence they feel socially isolated, and you can get loneliness. New research is showing that with visual loss, it sometimes increases the risk of cognitive impairment. And that makes sense because in order for our cognition to improve, we use things like hearing and our vision to help with our memories. But I know I've said a lot of negative things, but sometimes there can be a resilience in people with visual impairment. So for example, I'm sure with you, people with visual impairments, they have better memories because they learn to use their other skills. So they learn to listen more, they're able to pick up nuances in speeches, pick up cues, emotional cues in speeches. They can have memory, and the thing is, it's adapting. If you're not seeing things, then you've got to remember pathways, you've got to remember where things are, you've got to remember facts, and things like that, so they can be better at it as well. They can also become very good at problem solving, because with someone with visual impairment, there are lots of challenges. What people that can see take for granted, someone with visual impairment has to every day think about, okay, I'm in a new environment, how do I navigate the place, how do I get to the toilet, so they can be better at in terms of solving solving problems.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Wow, that's quite insightful. Thank you very much, Dr. Akeem. So another question I want to ask you is, how can the well-being of people living with visual impairment be promoted?
Yeah. But there are a lot of things like this. I think first of all, it's about support. What kind of support is in place? I think I spoke about the support being rallied around. So that was family members, friends, that is society as a whole. Are they making adaptations? Making sure that like you see a Netflix TV. I know you like watching Netflix movies. So making sure there are those adaptations. So people with visual impairments can get as much from society as possible. Then there are charities and organizations. So one that comes to mind is RNIB, and I know you're a stalwart of support for that organization, Royal National Institute for Blind People. The other thing to bear in mind is also when the support comes. So as people are, so because some people gradually lose their sight, so it's getting the right support at the same time. There's also an interesting concept called social valorization, which was based in, it's basically a Scandinavian concept, and that concept is that people with impairment or people living with disabilities, rather than just have, so there's a concept of normalization, so treat everyone equal, you understand, but social valorization is like really to empathize, to blow out those things, to give as much support, more support than would be would be normal for someone not living with disabilities. So if we're going to get maybe like benefits, we want to get the best benefits, we want to give them the best accommodation, people with disabilities, and that is supposed to help with those sorts of things.
All right, thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
So are you gonna be doing anything for us? I bet you can't do any cooking blindfolded.
I bet I can't, but I can do impressions.
Go for it.
Okay, let me do this one. Poetry in motion. I got B, Blue Ivy.
Dr.
Yeah, I
Sule
know who
does
that
an
is.
impression
That's
of
Jay-Z.
Well done. That's really good. That's really good. Do you want me to do another one?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. That's how you want to do things. I've run these streets. King Kong ain't got stuff on me. Y'all gonna be playing basketball in Pelican Bay. Shoe. Shoebox.
That's
He does
my
another
man
impression
Denzel.
of Denzel.
Very
That's
good.
my man Denzel.
Very,
You
very
got
good.
anything for us? Any more?
Okay, what about this one? Yeah, they're eating all the cats. Very, very bad people. Very bad people. They're not good for our country. We gotta get them out.
I think I know who that is.
Very good. Very, very good.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Sule. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. It's been very insightful. Thanks for sharing light on those facts. Thank you very much. Thanks for being on the show.
They do a
It's been an
fancy
honor.
handshake.
All right. Thank you.
All right, people. I know that this show has brought hope to the American people and to my beautiful wife, Michelle, watching. Thank you very much.
That's definitely on power. Definitely.
Well, I hope you found this episode very informative as we celebrate the Deaf Blind Week in honor of Helen Keller. Keep watching Sega Supreme, and it's been a Bet You Can't on the show. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Bye for now.
Deaf Blind Week. 23rd to 29th June 2025 in honor of Dr. Helen Keller. June 27, 1880 to June 1, 1968. The screen displays a quote from Helen Keller. Although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of the overcoming of it. Screen fades to black.